Hello and welcome back to Straight Talk. I'm Nicki Shields and I'm very excited to say that we have three rather unusual guests to be sitting together on a sofa. Now, for those of you watching, you might spy a familiar face. For those of you listening, I'm going to reveal who we are with. So we have a racing driver, we have a romance novelist, and we have a movie director and writer. Now, you can probably guess, if you've seen, we have Nick Heidfeld in the house. How you doing, Nick?
Hello, I'm fine, thanks.
Good to see. Former Formula 1 driver and Formula E driver for Mahindra, and now actually test driver and reserve driver for Mahindra.
Yeah,
so keeping busy. Alongside him, we have Paige Toon, who is a very talented romance novelist who sold over 1.5 million copies. That's amazing. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Everyone's thinking, why do we have a romance novelist here?
We'll get to that.
And then finally, we have Manish Pandey, the film producer who brought to us the magnificent Senna movie and another one too, which we can discuss in a minute. Welcome, Manish.
Thanks for having me. Great.
So obviously, why have we got them all here together on the sofa? Because we all love racing! Yay! So really, we're going to chat today about our love for racing. Where does it come from? Why is there so much romance around the world of motorsport? Nick, we're going to come to you in a minute because we know you. Everyone knows you. Well, they should do if they're listening to this anyway, or watching. But Paige, let's have a quick chat with you because for those of you that don't know, tell us a little bit about who you are and what your connection is to the world of motorsport.
So my dad is a racing driver, or was a racing driver. He's obviously still with us, but he's retired now. His name's Bern Schupan, and he won Le Mans in 1983. That was his biggest claim to fame. Did some IndyCar racing prior to that, came third at Indy 500 in his own car. And I just grew up around the world of racing. So, you know, it's just a place that I'm familiar with. And when I went on to become an author, you know, you're told to write what you know. And so my third book was basically set around the world of racing, about a girl who falls in love with a racing driver, possibly two. And yeah, sort of goes on from there.
So is this based on any characters that you met in the pit lanes or anyone in particular in mind? Or
well, it was kind of inspired by a couple of racing drivers who died. Senna, the first one who I met when I was 18. And
wow, what was it like meeting Senna?
Oh, he's a legend. It was incredible, and I had a bit of a crush on him, and which didn't go away afterwards, you know. And he went on to win the same race, and I was like, well,
there you are.
Clearly, because I wished
charm.
him luck.
Mm-hmm.
I wished him luck before the race. And the other one was Ronald Ratzenberg, who drove for my dad, and he died, you know, just before Senna did that same weekend. And obviously, I grew up in this world where my dad was going out doing this very, very risky job. Mm. At first, it was just very, very exciting to me, you know, win, Dad, win, you know, that's all you wanted. But as I grew up and, you know, and sort of matured a bit, and I realised just how dangerous this was. And so just this idea, basically, of falling in love with a racing driver, someone who puts, you know, their life at risk every time they go to work. You know, everyone loves a bit of jeopardy. You know, it's the idea of loving what you possibly can't have or might lose. You know, don't take that for granted. And I just thought that would be a great setting for a story. You know, Chasing Daisy is told all around the world, you know, and on the Formula 1 Grand Prix circuit. And so it's just, you know, very, very glamorous and it's just a very ordinary girl, basically, who, you know, who goes and does this very glamorous job, you know, told in all of these different locations around the world for these two hot drivers.
So kind of the world of motor racing gives you all the ingredients that you need to create that incredible story.
Yeah, absolutely. For this particular book, absolutely.
And obviously, you know, you still have this love of motorsport today.
I do, yeah. I still watch all the Grand Prix and, you know, still go to the British Grand Prix. My dad's usually over.
Oh, amazing.
My mum and dad, you know, we go and camp out on the BRDC sort of campsite, which is right in the middle of the track, which is amazing. Poor mum and dad end up on a blow-up mattress, which is a bit unfair. We're wearing our camper van, but
brilliant.
They're good sports. They're good sports. I know it's not fair, really.
Oh, how things have changed, probably. It wasn't like that when he was driving in Formula 1.
No, exactly. Yeah. No, he'd absolutely be in the posh hotel, but he doesn't mind slumming it so much these days. It's good fun.
And just going back to when you went to the Australian Grand Prix when you're 18 years old, kind of on the grid. I think you have, or maybe it was photos from another race, but I should probably explain where we are. For those of you that can see and are watching us, you can see we've got the Mahindra car behind us in a studio. But the studio, we're actually at the offices of LAT. Now, they have the world's largest collection of photos from the world of motorsport. No less than 26 million photos, an incredible archive. And we've actually been fortunate enough to, just as soon as you arrived, we had a quick look in the archive, didn't we?
Yeah, it was amazing.
Found some photos of you as a little girl with your father.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Me and my brother, it was so cool, so cool. God, they have an incredible array of photos back there. It's just amazing.
And so well organised. I mean, they literally found it within 30 seconds.
Oh,
it was
completely.
amazing.
We walked in and the second I said who my dad's name was, 10 seconds later, he's up on the screen. And and lots of photos that haven't yet been archived, which is amazing, being able to flick through those and just see him with his big 70s sideburns and, and stuff like that. My mum with her giant sunglasses.
It's amazing. The first thing I did was I had a quick search for Dario Franchitti, who is 3-time Indy 500 winner and the commentator for Formulary and a colleague of mine. I found these hysterical photos of him. He must have been about 18 years old. I sent them to him and he was like, "Oh, wow, that's me in the first suit I bought from CNA for 90 quid. And I wore it to meet Jackie Stewart. He's still got it." So, oh my God, what a story.
Brilliant.
But tell us about books that you are, or a book that you're currently writing, or anything that we can sort of get excited about.
Well, it's not set in the world of racing. But funnily enough, my last book that I've just, which came out earlier this year, is called If You Could Go Anywhere. And that's because racing is not as dangerous anymore, which is obviously a good thing. But, just in that search for jeopardy, I ended up writing about base jumping, which is another extremely dangerous sport, and I think there is, like I say, that's something, that sort of romanticism about, kind of falling for someone who does something very dangerous, the idea of losing, someone like that. So it's not allegedly about base jumping if you read the blurb, but yeah, that's like a bit of a sort of twist in the story.
Wow, what's it called?
It's called If You Could Go Anywhere.
If You Could Go Anywhere. Brilliant. Excellent. Well, we look forward to having a read of that as well. Thank you, Paige. Now, Manish, on to you, because I think most people know you as the man that bought us Senna, which was an absolutely phenomenal success. Obviously, we've heard from Paige about the kind of ingredients that you need to create a fantastic story. What is it that made Senna so incredible when you were writing it?
I think I really loved him, and I think that makes such a big difference. No, it's true. Just as a fan, sometimes you can be a bit wide-eyed and naive, but I think also I was in my mid-30s when I started that project properly, a little bit older actually, and he'd been gone for quite a while, so there was some space as well to think about it. And then film is a really disciplined media, really unlike novels, where you have, if you want to make something 200 pages long, you do. If you want to make it 500 pages long, you can. And actually, if you're Vikram Seth, you can make something 1,000 pages long, and people will read it. And I also remember when we were working on Senna at that time, feature docs were quite new, and we knew we had about 100 minutes, which means about 100 pages of screenwriting time. And there was so much archive to go through, so many potential stories to tell, and so, you start off with this kind of undiluted love and passion, but also there's a very technical side to screenwriting. I'd actually written 3 romantic comedies for working title by that time, because I was actually a rom-com writer.
But what I love about this is you weren't always a rom-com writer, were you?
No, I trained as a surgeon, actually. I did,
which is incredible.
Yeah. No,
you trained and you were working as a surgeon for a while.
Yes, very much so. But I think, your passion eventually comes out, even if you're a good Indian boy who's the son of a surgeon. It just finds its way. And I think actually something quite telling about it. I'd written those rom-coms for a company that just produced rom-coms like bread and butter, but actually my first produced film is something that I'm even more passionate about than the writing, that had paid the bills a little bit before. And I think the thing about Senna also was he had lived as a kind of mythical figure way beyond racing and way beyond his death. I mean, everybody sort of knew who he was. And I remember, we started that project 10 years after his death. And when we'd finished the film, I was invited to lots and lots of things, and people's memories, a little like yours. That whether you liked him or not, you were always touched by him. People really felt for him. He produced emotion, and we went to the 20th anniversary of his death at Imola, and the crowd at the 20th anniversary of his death, the 25,000 people turned up, and that's a power of filmmaking as well as the power of the man, because we just sort of reminded people who he was and of his life as much as his death.
Exactly, and the importance that he had on the world of motorsport.
Yeah.
Nick, I've got to ask you, so would you like Manish to maybe write a film about your racing career?
Well, if he did a film about Senna, I think it wouldn't really fit to do a film about Heidfeld.
You're being too modest.
He's an icon, and is somebody who I would have loved to meet. Luckily, I met some people who knew him, and he just has so much charisma. I mean, you watch him in many scenes that were also in your film, and it's just amazing the amount of power and passion he had.
So we're not going to have a film called Heidfeld anytime soon then, Manish?
Oh, I don't know.
You got it in you?
Maybe I have another career after racing, and I do something.
I'll write you a book.
Outstanding.
I'll write you a book.
A romantic book about Nick Heidfeld.
Oh, this could be interesting. Tell us the story.
Yeah, what did I do?
Who did he fall in
I'll
love with?
speak
His
to your wife. I'll speak to your wife.
Yeah, they've got 3 children. But where's the juice? Where's the drama?
We need to speak to the wife for that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, okay. We'll get the gossip from her. Okay, favourite racing movie? Obviously, we have to exclude Senna from this one.
I think Grand Prix, the original one.
Okay, yeah.
I love that. I can watch that all day and all night, actually.
How many times have you watched it?
A few. The whole crew watched that.
Did you have to watch a lot of movie?
I'd seen them anyway, but the whole crew, yes. Yeah, we watch it. And also Le Mans, I think. Both of those are really worth watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brilliant. Over to you.
For me? Oh, it's got to be Senna, absolutely.
We're excluding Senna. But we're excluding Senna.
Oh, well, for me, it has to be Senna. The other one, I did like Rush, because there's this point in it where Niki Lauda walks in with a suitcase full of money and buys the ride. That was my dad's ride.
So good.
And I was sitting next to him, sitting next to him in the theatre, and we're just like giggling, And then afterwards, Nikki sort of like saying, and you have to change this, and what? This is my dad sitting there. He's like, this is just, this is bull.
That is brilliant.
He didn't do that.
And Nick, what would yours be?
It's also Senna, even if I'm not allowed to.
No, okay,
to
Senna
say.
the first,
well,
and then what's
I
the
didn't see too many racing movies, to be honest. I can tell you the worst one. It's Driven. Is it with Sylvester Stallone? And then with the translation in German, it's just awful.
No, really? Yeah. I thought you were going to say something like Fast and Furious.
Well, I cannot stand watching this for more than 2 minutes. I don't know why it's so successful, to be honest. I mean, I'm happy if people like it, but I don't get it.
I think racing drivers often have a very difficult time with motor racing movies, though, because what looks very dramatic to an audience who don't know anything about cars, to a racing driver. I mean, if you've just seen, have you seen Le Mans 66? Ford versus Ferrari. It's great. They're going at top speed down the Mulsanne Straight, and they change down, and the cars don't blow up. And if you're watching that, it just makes you chuckle.
Yeah, it's so
and there's some nerd sitting at home going, "Oh, you really spoiled it for me." But just things like that. I think for racing drivers, that's very tough.
But in Fast and Furious, it's not only that being unrealistic, but some of the acting, I think, is just so bad. I mean, I'm not a specialist, but then I think, why is it so successful, and why are those actors seen as like actors? For me, it's like, I can do it.
Because he's Vin Diesel. He can do whatever he wants.
So the thing is, Nick, now, the thing about movie making now, if you want to make a movie that is internationally successful, what you have to imagine is watching the film without any dialogue. And that's how these films work. They're all hyper dramatic now, because it's got to work in China, in India, in Europe, and in America. And the kind of, only international language for all of that are wide-eyed facial expressions. And that's why, what you regard as ham, it's underacting in Bollywood.
That's a good explanation.
I love it. So who would your, if we were to make the movie Heidfeld, who would play your part, Nick? Who would your sort of number one actor
Edward Norton.
Oh, really? Okay, nice. Would you cast Norton for it?
I think that'd be great call, wouldn't it?
I think he's a very good actor. Yeah,
very intense. He starts off as a priest, doesn't he, in this story? That's what it is. He's a young boy who wants to become a priest, but he becomes a racing driver. And that's the arc.
Oh, I love it.
I'm just writing this down.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, seriously, guys, we need to make this happen. Nick, do you find it, because obviously there's so much, as we said, sort of jeopardy in the sort of racing movies, and a lot of it is about the danger of racing and, unfortunately, the deaths that we've seen in racing. Do you find that a bit strange that we need to sort of dramatize that part of it to make it a good movie? Because obviously, you're the one in the car driving.
I'm not sure. I don't see it from that perspective, but most of the people you speak to, especially the ones who just watch racing occasionally, see this as a big factor. But the fans that love motorsport and are more into it don't really see it that way and don't need it that much.
You don't see it in the same way. But there is an event that you always, I think we both actually love going, although somehow Formula E loves to make sure it clashes the calendar with Goodwood Festival of Speed, which is always such a great event for fans, motorsport fans, and obviously all the sort of glitterati from the world of motorsport are there. What is it that you love so much about going?
Yeah, Goodwood. Actually, I will go again this year, even it's on the same weekend as New York.
How are you managing that?
Well, Dilbach, our team boss, also likes Goodwood a lot. I think we first went there like 3 years ago. So there's not much convincing needed. And I will drive this car and I will drive the Battista probably as well. And this year, for the first time, I will most likely have my family there.
Oh, that's lovely. Is that the first time that they're going?
Yes.
Oh, amazing.
Yes. And I mean, I'm a car lover, and obviously I like motorsport, and the amount of cars you see there is just outstanding. In my eyes, you don't get that anywhere else. And on top of that, the atmosphere is also unique. By now, it's a huge event, but still it doesn't feel like it's that huge, and everybody loves it, and it's well organized. Yeah, it's just a fantastic.
What's funny is it's exactly that. They've somehow managed to keep the average level of passion exactly the same. So there's a place that now has got 50 times as many people who perhaps went 10 years ago, but every single person there gets into the spirit. And also, have you been to the revival?
No, I want to go.
That's also just another one.
You've not been to revival?
No.
It's like, just imagine crossing the
go.
Festival of Speed with Wimbledon. It's the only way to describe it. It's
And
got
dress
this,
up.
Yes. You get in all your 1960s gear. Everyone looks incredible.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Like, it just is such a sort of classy event because everyone makes an effort. You're the idiot if you come dressed in your plain clothes.
Absolutely.
And it's just so wonderful to see not only the cars in period but also everyone else in period costume.
Yeah, we'll go for sure.
Yeah.
When I find time.
Yeah, you'd love it. And the other thing is that the people who bring some of their sort of old cars along, I mean, you'll see Ferraris there that you didn't imagine existed, 250 Maseratis. Yeah. You see things and you just look at them and,
but they're racing.
They're racing.
They're crazy. And they're not just sort of pootling around doing like a sort of demo show run. They're actually racing each other hard. You're like, oh my God, I don't know how the event gets the insurance because the value of the cars in the car park alone is just off the scale. But
I think it's one of those things that sort of slightly reaffirms a bit of human spirit because they are ridiculous. 3, 4, 5 million pound cars being driven absolutely, flat out, and they
by wannabe racing drivers.
Absolutely,
not by racing drivers.
They make contact, but the owners sit there and they're really pretty calm about the whole thing because that's what they're really all about. That's what we all fell in love with.
Yeah, that's what they all say, but I don't get my head around it. I mean, I've been asked to drive various cars, but as I said, I love cars also, especially classic cars for the looks. But I can't drive them quick. I mean, they're just a piece of art. I don't want to destroy them. Even if they were built to do that, I don't know. Maybe in a few years' time, but now I'm like, no.
Can't get your head around it. Oh, okay, conversely then, obviously most of the racing movies that we've talked about are your noisy internal combustion engine cars. Do you think we can find the same and I guess evoke the same emotion with electric cars.
Yeah, I'm quite sure. If we go more deep into what is happening in the life of racing, for example, the film Senna, I think it was not about screaming engines. It's what happens behind. It's about the drama, about the passion. And I mean, I love a nice sounding engine or car, like a Porsche Carrera GT is my favorite sound. But if you look at Formula One now, it doesn't sound nice. Speaking of Goodwood, I think it was 2 years ago, a car started behind me and I turned around to see what it was, and it was an F1 car. It was really disappointing. I mean, 10 years ago, you did hear that there was a Formula One car when you were a kilometer away. So it's not only that.
You don't need earplugs anymore at races.
No, which I quite like. It's much more sociable, and for filming, it's great.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, the government today announced that we're not going to have internal combustion cars, diesels, or hybrids in this country in just 15 years. They're going to be phased out. And I think you'll find that drama won't be phased out in 15 years. And I think almost certainly the track is going to follow what's happening on the road. Because in some ways, these two things have been tied. Enzo Ferrari built cars for the road, but he built cars for the track. And if you fell in love with the car on the track, you were more likely to buy the car for the road. You had a choice. And I think, and Nick's right, you may not be able to hear the car in the same way, but I think you can appreciate it. I don't think anyone looking at the Formula E car behind me can do anything other than just sort of quietly marvel at that. I mean, it's beautiful. It's just an object of absolute beauty. And I think you want to tell a dramatic story. I think these things will always be dramatic.
Yeah.
You don't drive a kilometre an hour slower because it's electric, do you? If that thing could do 350, you'd be doing 350, and they will be. That's the other thing. Batteries are getting lighter. These cars are getting quicker. I would imagine that in 10, 15 years' time, there probably won't be much of a difference in performance, and that's a good thing.
Well, in fact, they're faster. That's the most beautiful part about it all. I mean, earlier in the studio, just behind us, we had the Automobili Pininfarina Battista, which is this electric hypercar, which is absolutely stunning. The design on that is just exquisite. You haven't seen anything like it, and that's doing 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in under 2 seconds, which is just insane.
Yeah. I mean, it just takes time. I'm sure in 20, 30 years' time, people will look and listen to old combustion engines and they will laugh at it and say, can you imagine back then the offices, it was so noisy. It's just
it kind of does feel a bit archaic getting into an old internal combustion engine car now. At least we drive hybrids and electrics. Finally, because we are running out of time, I know we could go on and on for ages. Tell us what you guys are all up to next. Nick, I think I know what you're going to say, but tell us anyway.
Well, actually, I'm flying home tonight, but then the next thing is I will be in Cambiano in Italy for Automobili Pininfarina, discussing about the next couple of weeks and months.
Ah, cool.
Planning.
So because you've been helping sort of the design process of the car.
Yes, and now in the near future it will be more driving the car. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Because
Really
you haven't
looking
driven it yet.
No, just on the simulator. Yeah.
Wow, that will be exciting. And Paige?
Well, I've just finished writing another book, The Minute I Saw You, which is out in May. So from here until then, it'll be publicity. And
is it such a relief when you finish writing? How long does it take to write a book?
It doesn't take me that long. I tend to write my books from start to finish in less than 3 months.
Wow.
And then after that, it just takes editing, and there's so much publicity you have to do and just general promotion and
Is that
stuff.
the fun part, or is the writing the fun part?
I don't mind. No, for me, the writing's the fun part. That's what I love. So just getting stuck into a story is, that's my passion.
How wonderful. Well, good luck.
Thank you.
And we will be looking out for the launch and buying the book, of course. And Manish, what's next for you?
As you probably know, I finished making my film Heroes last year. So we will be announcing in the next week, the release plans. A big French distributor who's taken that on. So that's really exciting. And then
quickly tell us about Heroes, top line story.
I managed to get 4 drivers that I am slightly in love with who are all living. So Mika Hakkinen, Felipe Massa.
Mika Hakkinen. I could remember 3 and 4. But,
We're speaking about
there
it.
we go.
Yeah. So Mika, Felipe,
yeah.
Tom Christensen, and then I think the person who blew us all away, Michelle Mouton,
the most mega woman.
She really
ever.
is. They meet at a beautiful English country home and spend a day and night together talking about their lives. And the person that connects them all is Michael Schumacher. So as they talk about their lives, we use a lot of archive to illustrate the highs, the lows, but also sort of tell a proxy story of Michael's life. And I think the best thing about it for me is that when people who are really successful in life look back at their lives, the highs and lows professionally quickly vanish, and it really becomes a very personal story. We all have kids. We all find people I hope we fall in love with. We have our ups, and sadly we have our downs. That's life.
Wonderful. See, just romantic, just the way you talk. You can tell he's a writer, can't you? Well, guys, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for watching or listening, whatever you're doing. Please do remember to subscribe, and we will be bringing you a new episode of Straight Talk very soon.